All right, so to get started with DocuSign, we actually want to first begin in Command. I've already set up an opportunity for a client, so I'm going to go to my opportunities. I'm going to click on the icon of the two hands shaking, and then for me, I always just find it easiest up here at the top to click on all opportunities, and this will show me a list of all the opportunities that I have going on right now. So you can see here I have 1234 Main Street. And I've already gone ahead and I filled in all the information about this opportunity. So here's the property address, 1234 Main Street in Atlanta. Here are my clients, Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, estimated close date of 10/15. So I'm good to go there. Now today we're going to walk through a listing example, because there are some forms like the seller's property disclosure and lead-based paint disclosure and community association disclosure that have a unique client interface versus the documents that you have with a buyer. But it's going to be the same process. And I'm also going to walk through a purchase and sale agreement as well, just so you can see how to use that form since you're getting ready to write some offers. So within my opportunity, I'm going to come over here to the Documents tab. And then you'll see here over in the right-hand corner, it says Start a Transaction. It is very, very important that you click the Start a Transaction button in Command. By clicking Start a Transaction, Command and DocuSign will link, and that way you'll be able to easily add those signed forms from DocuSign into Command. If you start a room directly in DocuSign, you will not be able to retroactively connect that to an opportunity in Command. So you will not be able to have that sync functionality. Is it the end of the world? No, you can still download those forms directly from DocuSign and then manually upload them into Command. But one of the main benefits of having DocuSign with Command is the ability of the two systems to sync. So you must click Start a Transaction here. So I'm going to click Start a Transaction. Oh, actually, one thing before we actually do that, you'll notice here in our command that we have this green button that says DS next to listing agreement and DS next to seller's property disclosure. That DS stands for DocuSign. And what that means is that because these forms are going to be required on, I'd say probably 99% of the transactions that you have, they have already been loaded into your room for you once you get into DocuSign, just to kind of save you a little bit of time. So that's what that DS means. It just means that it'll already be loaded in your DocuSign room. So I'm going to click Start a Transaction. And this is going to open up DocuSign in a new room, and it's going to have me sign in. If you have pop-up blockers on, it may block DocuSign from loading. You'll know that because over in your URL search bar up here, it'll have a little red box that says pop-up prohibited. Just let it accept pop-ups from DocuSign and Command. So I'm going to log in. So I have my password saved, so it's very simple. Now you'll notice when I log in, it takes me directly into my Documents tab. And here are those two documents, the listing agreement and the seller's property disclosure, that I had the DS buttons next to in Command, and they're already loaded here in my room. Your first instinct is going to want to be to fill in these forms. However, since this is our first time in DocuSign, we need to go ahead and confirm our NRDS ID, our NERDS ID. By confirming our NERDS ID, we are going to let DocuSign know that we have permission to use those GAR forms. The Georgia Association of Realtor forms are copywritten, and we have to be a member of a board to use them. So with this being your very first time logging into DocuSign, to confirm your NERDS ID, there are two places you can do it. The first is up here in the top right-hand corner. We can click Add, select Docusign Forms, and then it's going to give us this pop-up with the Realtor logo. So I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors logo. And then it's going to ask for my 9-digit NERDS ID, which I don't know offhand. So thankfully, I'm just going to click this link right here. It says find your NERDS ID. It'll open up another browser window, and you can use your last name, email address, and or real estate license number. So I'm going to use my last name and license number to look up my NERDS ID. Click submit. There it is. So I'm just going to highlight this, copy, and I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to paste this right here into my NERDS ID. And then for my association, I'm going to go to the Georgia Association of Realtors. Now, I'm actually a member of the Atlanta Realtor Association, but for DocuSign purposes, we need to look for the Georgia Association. So as a member of any board in the state of Georgia, automatically enrolls you as a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors, and it is the GAR forms that we need permission to use. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom because these list of associations are in no specific order. And I'll scroll up just a little bit, and then we have the Georgia Association of Realtors. After I have all of my information filled out here, I'm going to click validate. And it's going to let me know that it has validated my association memberships. Now, if this is your very first time confirming your NERDS ID, you'll also have a secondary pop-up window here asking you to accept the terms and conditions of the Georgia Association of Realtors before you can use those GAR forms. I now know that I have access to these forms because I can see GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors, over here in the left-hand column for my libraries. Any questions about confirming your NERDS ID before I show you this way, before I show you the second way?
No, and thank you very much. That's very easy to understand.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because you made it easy to understand.
You're welcome. So the second way to confirm your NERDS ID, and I want to, but once you confirm your NERDS ID one time, you shouldn't have to ever confirm it again. You should be good to go. However, if something happens, something gets messed up, and you need to update it, I'm going to show you this other way, so that way you can correct it if need be. So what I'm going to do is up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click on my picture, or it would be your initials. Then I'm going to select Preferences. And then in the left-hand column, I'm going to select Integrations. And then here it's going to show me National Association of Realtors. If I hadn't already confirmed my NERDS ID, I would click Add Provider. And I would just go through those same steps here that we went through with going through the Realtor logo, putting in our NERDS ID, last name, and selecting the Georgia Association of Realtors. So if you ever need to update it, here's how you do it: Preferences and then Integrations. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. So I'm going to jump back into my room that we just created. So I'm going to go back to the Documents tab because I want to pretend like we just came directly from Command. So we're here in the Documents tab. Like I said earlier, my first inclination would be, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start filling out my forms because that's what I'm so excited to do. However, before you start filling out any of the GAR forms, let's go to the Details tab and fill in all of the information on the Details page. It is that information on the Details tab that's going to pre-populate all those fields on our form. So it's going to save us some time and make sure that all the information on our GAR forms is correct. So I'm going to go over to the Details tab. You'll notice up here in the top left-hand corner, it shows the name of our room, which is 1234 Main Street Stark Potts listing, which is the exact name of my opportunity in Command. So that's one way I know that they're linked. It shows the property address, and it pulled in all of this information from Command. And then I have my DocuSign ID right here. And this is kind of a DocuSign 2.0, but if you ever wanted to email yourself documents directly into your room, you can use this ID here. Now, to edit or add information, we're going to click the Edit button up here in the top right-hand corner. And now you'll notice the information is kind of laid out in two different columns. So the left-hand side, about like 3/4 of the page, is going to be all the information about the specific property and the contract. And then this column over here on the quarter right-hand side is going to be all about the actual sellers, buyers, listing agent, and buyer's agent. So we'll fill in all the information on the left-hand side about the property first, and then we'll go into the information about all of the people involved. When you're filling out the information on the details tab, fill in as much of the information that you have at that point in time. You're not going to have everything. So if you don't leave it blank, you can always come back and add it later, or you may not need it at all. So for local currency, I'm going to select US dollar. My MLS ID, I'm just going to give this a fake MLS ID. I just put that in there, but we'll just pretend that this is real. Origin of lead doesn't matter. Company room status doesn't matter. My address has auto-populated from command, so 1234 Main Street. If for whatever reason it doesn't add in the information from command, you can just go in and type in the address information here. I'm going to add the county. This is Fulton County. And we'll state of Georgia. Property type, we're going to select a single family detached, residential detached. Year built, I'm just going to select 2008. Special circumstances, there are none, so we'll leave that blank. So since this is a new listing, we don't actually have, new listing, we can just put in our listing date of today's date, listing expiration, we'll do December 31st. Original listing amount, I think I have 415. Current listing, 415, 415. So I'll just fill all that information in. Scrolling down for offer details. Since I'm just preparing the listing, I don't have an offer yet, so I can leave this blank. Same thing with high bid confirmation, closing details. I don't have any of that yet, so let's leave it blank. And then any additional information, I don't really need any of this, or property details, it's unnecessary. So I filled in all the information that I know about this property on the left-hand side. Now let's go through and make sure that all the information for the parties involved with this transaction is correct. So I'm going to come over here to the right-hand column. You'll see seller one, it pulled in as Tony Stark, that's my client. Here's his cell phone number, and here's his email address. At the very minimum, when you are adding contacts to a room in DocuSign, you need their name and their email address. You don't need their cell phone number and you don't need their mailing address. If you don't have it, it's fine. You just need their name and their email address. And that email address is required, so that way you have an email to an address to email the documents for signature. So if you don't have an email address, you won't be able to send this for signature. So we have Tony Stark. His information is good to go. Scrolling down, we have Pepper Potts as seller two. And then here's Pepper's email, which is just my personal email. And then scrolling down, then we have my information as the listing agent. So it pulls in my name. Here's my business number, my email, my company name. So this is going to come directly out of the settings. Now you'll notice it says Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. This is going to be kind of silly and it's very minor, but I would recommend deleting Realty out of the company name. Lynn and Alita have confirmed that this is okay. And the only reason I recommend that is because Keller Williams First Atlanta takes up the full space on the GAR forms. And if you have Realty in there, the text will overlap some of the other text in there. So we have our address here, 200 Glenridge Point Parkway, Suite 100, Atlanta, Georgia, 30342. So everything there looks good for me. Scrolling down, if I were listing this with another agent, I would put his or her information in here, but I'm not. This is just my own listing. Scrolling down, we have buyer one. And the reason I want to point this out is because if you're working with just a buyer, you'll leave the seller's information blank, and then you would come down here and put your client's information in as buyer one. And do the same thing, at least the name and email address. Scrolling down, same thing for buyer two. You'd put their contact name and email address here. And then you'd put yourself as buyer agent one. Now, since I'm working on a listing, I could theoretically, and let's say I was countering a buyer's agent, I can go ahead and put that buyer's agent information in here. But we don't have that yet because we're just preparing our listing agreement. And then we have a buyer agent too. So that's the end of the information for that right-hand column. But I do want to just point out that you do have to scroll pretty far down to get to the buyer information. So just, I don't want you to think that like, oh no, it's not included, I don't have it. It's there, you just have to scroll really far down. So now that we filled in all of the information about the property in the details tab, as well as the sellers and myself as the listing agent, I'm going to click save in the bottom right-hand corner. So now my room has been updated. Any questions about updating the information on the details tab?
Yes, Nick, if you do not click save, what happens?
If you don't click save, so let's do edit and then click documents tab, it won't save it. So it'll
So you just did all the work and now you have to, so you only do that once or twice and then you remember to click that button.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Because I could see me doing it once or twice. I have to remember that big button. Okay, I think that was all that I needed on that.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very important that you put your clients in the details tab as either seller 1, seller 2, or buyer 1, buyer 2, because later on when we go to send these documents for signature, the settings require that we have our clients here on the details tab. So we always want to make sure that we add their information in here and click save, because that is going to make our lives so much easier in the next couple minutes.
Okay.
So now that we filled in the information on the details tab, I'm going to go into the documents tab, because now we need to start filling out our listing agreement and our other disclosures. So because we had set, the MCA office and I had set up to have the listing agreement and seller's property disclosure automatically added into our room, they're right here, but I'm missing my community association disclosure. And I do want to walk through the purchase and sale agreement just so that way we can go through that, since that's going to be a really, really heavily used document in your career. To add documents to the room, I'm going to click on the plus sign add button in the top right-hand corner, and I'm going to select Docusign Forms. Give it a second to load. Now here we go. Now you'll notice we have groups up here and libraries down here. So all of the GAR forms are down here in the GAR Georgia Association of Realtors library. I think all 180 documents. And you can search for those. So I can search right here. I can type in purchase and sale. And it's going to pull up all the purchase and sale agreements. Now there's a lot of them that have very similar names. So I'm going to have to go through and pay attention to which one I want to add. But I can also use the form number. So I know that the purchase and sale agreement for residential resale is F201. So I could actually come over here and type in, let me scroll up, F201. And then there we go. So I can click add selected. Now, also what you'll notice is up here in the groups, you can come up here and click in. So this is a listing. So I can click listing packet. Oh, let me remove that. Listing packet. And it's going to show me a bunch of documents that I'm likely to use. So I've gone ahead and put all these documents in here that you are likely to use if you are the listing agent. And this is really just to help you save time. So that way you don't have to hunt and peck throughout all 180 GAR forms. Here are going to be some of the main documents that you'll use. So here's my community association disclosure. I don't need instructions for closing attorney. This house was built in 2008, so I don't need lead-based paint for this. Disclosure for a condominium. Seller's property disclosure. It's already in use. It's already added to the room, so we're good to go. So I've selected my community association disclosure as well as my purchase and sale. So I'm going to click add selected. The page will reload and it's going to add those documents into my room docs folder. Every time you add a document or a document is completed with signature, it's going to default into the room docs folder. Now, one of the benefits and maybe one of the curses of DocuSign is that you can organize your documents any which way that you want to. So you can leave everything in this single room docs folder, or you can separate it out into different folders. If you would like to have different folders, which I would recommend, come up here to the Actions button, we'll click Actions, and then I'm going to select Add Folder. And since today we're making a listing agreement, I'm going to create a listing agreement folder. Click Create. Now I have my listing agreement folder, so I can put all the documents that are going to be related to my listing agreement in there. There are two ways to move documents around from folder to folder within a room. The first is if you roll your mouse over a document icon, you'll see this radio button that appears in the top left-hand corner. You can click on that, and that's going to select the document. Whenever you select the document, this toolbar will appear at the top. Excuse me. So, let me come over here. Let me select both of these. Oh, they took it away. Okay, perfect. So if you want to move a document, you can just right mouse click on it. Did they get rid of the move feature? Okay, well, I guess they got rid of the move feature. So if you want to move a document, all you do is just roll your mouse over the document icon, click it, hold your mouse down, and drag it into the folder that you want to put it into. It's that simple. So I'm just going to drag it up there. I'm going to put my seller's property disclosure up there. So now I have my CAD, my listing agreement, and my SPD all in this listing agreement folder. And then down here, my room docs folder, I just have my purchase and sale. So that's how you can go through and you can build out different folders and organize them. It's still wild that we don't have the move. All right. Any questions on adding documents to the room or moving them into different folders?
No, that seems pretty straightforward, actually.
Perfect.
And I know it's because you're good at teaching this, because well, plus, and I've also used Remind, so it's a little bit similar, but not really.
Yeah.
So this is really good. Thank you.
All right. So now let's actually start filling out our GAR forms. So I'm going to get started with the seller's listing agreement, and then we're going to work our way through all the forms. So to open up a document to start editing it, I'm just going to click on it, and it's going to open it up. Give it a second to load. All right. Now you'll notice some of this information has already been added here. And this is because this is the information that we typed in on the details page that then automatically gets added to those corresponding fields on any of the GAR forms that we add to our room. But I do need to go through and fill in all the missing information. So we have our tax parcel ID. So I would get this from the tax records and I would type that in here. We have our legal description. We'll select one of these options, preferably attached as an exhibit here too, so you can get that legal description either from the tax records or from one of our affiliate closing attorney partners. If for whatever reason there's no legal description anywhere that, or no limited warranty deed or something that you can attach an exhibit, you can always use your deed book and page, but I'm going to select attach as an exhibit here too. Scroll down, we have our listed price at $415. Now you'll notice there aren't any commas in there. For whatever reason, when DocuSign mapped these fields as numbers, they didn't include the ability to add commas for some of them. It doesn't, I don't know why, but just be mindful that you don't add too many zeros and don't make this listed for $4.15 million. Then we have our commencement agreement date. So I'm just going to type in the date of 10/1/2021. Now, I guess I only need to do 10/1 and then 2021. Now, one thing I want to point out is whenever you are typing in a date in any of the DocuSign forms, you want to do it in numerical format. So 10/1. And then the ending agreement date, we did December 31st, 2021. Perfect. So then we'll come down here. Marketing, we are going to list this in FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. And the marketing commencement date, we'll say we're going to list this on Monday, 10/4/2021, or no more than 3 days. All right, continuing down, we're just going to fill in the rest of the information. Commission, so I'm going to select that I have negotiated 6% commission, and I agree to pay the cooperating broker 3%. Commission adjustment, separated lease, no. Protected periods, I always like to negotiate 90 days. Agency and brokerage, we do not offer the following, so we do not offer dual agency or sub agency. The seller does not consent to acting for the broker acting in his dual agency. Scrolling down, seller has a special circumstances, no special circumstances for this transaction, thankfully. And then the seller does authorize the broker to assist in negotiating terms and filling out contracts. So we'll just continue to scroll through, and it's that simple, just filling in the blanks and checking the boxes for the information we need to fill in. Now, I do want to point out that today's class, my training, is about how to use DocuSign and not necessarily the correct information to fill out on GAR forms. Please always refer to Lynn and Alita for how to properly fill in or which information is correct to use for these forms. So we're just scrolling through, and then we get to our brochure. So I'm going to select all the brochures that I want to add. Lead-based paint, mold, I don't know, whatever you want to include. Protect yourself. All of these brochures are in DocuSign, and I've already created a group that has all of them together, so that way it's much easier to find them so you can send them to your clients. And then we have our exhibits, so we have our legal description, and this will be Exhibit A. Special stipulations, if you have any special stipulations that you like to include in your listing agreement or anything that you've discussed with your seller, you can write that in here. And all you have to do is click into the box and you can start typing your special stip here. You can add some more here. So it's that easy to add special stipulations. And this may be something similar to if you discussed a list price, but then, set in, after 3 weeks, if we're not under contract, then we can, reduce the sales price to this or XYZ. If for whatever reason you have so many special stipulations, you need to attach an additional page, be sure to check that box right there. Scrolling down, you'll see that it automatically added our sellers' names and email addresses here. So good to go. So I don't need to change that. One thing I do want to point out is that on any of these fields where information is pre-populated from the details tab, if I edit or delete that information on any of the GAR forms, it'll make that same edit or deletion from the details tab. And that will affect all the other GAR forms as well in my room. So just want to point that out, and I'll show you when that becomes a little bit more of a concern. Scrolling down, I'm going to fill in the rest of my information here that is not pre-populated. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why DocuSign does not automatically load this information. However, you are able to create templates that you can use. And you can go ahead and save all this information so you don't have to fill it out every single time. So I've gone through it, filled in all that. Scroll to the bottom, make sure there aren't any other fields. And then I see the Save and Close button down here at the bottom of the screen, also up here at the top right. You must click Save and Close for DocuSign to save the information you just added. So I'm going to click Save and Close. Perfect. So now our information for a listing agreement is good to go. The next document I'm going to use is the seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to click on this to open it up. And similar to the listing agreement, we're just going to start at the top and work our way down and make sure that all the information is filled in correctly. So we have our exhibit. This isn't a part of a purchase and sale contract, so I'm just going to leave this blank. You can see here that the address information is pre-populated from the details tab, so we're good to go there. And if I scroll down as I get into the information about the seller's property disclosure, you'll notice there aren't any text boxes and there aren't any check boxes here. That is correct. You and I as agents are not allowed to fill out any of the disclosures on behalf of our clients. So all of these fields for filling in information and check boxes are going to be mapped to our clients, that only they are allowed to fill them in. So when we're looking at the disclosures here, it's going to look like they're blank and they're not working properly, when in fact they are working perfectly. So I'm just going to go through, just double check to make sure that there aren't any fields that I need to fill in, but we know that all of these should be left blank because they are to be filled in and completed by our clients. So come down to the bottom, make sure that our clients' names are there. Perfect, simple enough, and click Save and Close. The next document I'm going to use is the Community Association disclosure. So I'm just going to click to open that up. And this is going to be the exact same as the seller's property disclosure. So just going to make sure that the information about the property address is populated correctly, but I don't need to add an exhibit letter or an offer date yet because this is not attached to an actual offer. Then I'm going to scroll down just to make sure there aren't any fields that I as the agent need to fill in, but I'll see all of these check boxes and text boxes are blank. There's nothing there. Again, because that is not for me to fill out as the agent. Everything will be mapped to my seller client. But I do always want to scroll through just to give it a double check and a once over to make sure that there aren't any fields that I do need to fill in. Good to go here. I'm going to click Save and Close. Before we jump into the purchase and sale agreement, are there any questions about filling in the seller's or the listing agreement and the disclosures?
No, thank you.
All right. So those are your main listing agreement forms that you'll be using. I do want to walk through the purchase and sale agreement. It's going to be the same process, but just want to get you comfortable and familiar with it in DocuSign, since you will be using this heavily throughout your real estate career. So I'm down here in my room docs folder. So I'm going to open up my purchase and sale agreement. Right. And it's going to be the same process as all the other forms. We'll just start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in all of the information. So for today, this is going to be kind of backwards of how you normally do it because I'm set up as a listing agent. So the system is going to recognize me putting together this purchase and sale agreement as a listing agent, which is not impossible, but just not very common. But we'll just start at the top and we'll fill in information. So we'll do today's date. So I'll select 10/1/2021. It automatically adds our MLS number. I'll just add in the tax parcel ID that I made up earlier. Legal description, I'm gonna check the box for an exhibit here too, because I have that I got from our Alliance closing attorney. Our purchase price. So it's listed at $415, but let's say I had some buyers that came into an open house and they want me to represent them as a customer. So I still have my client relationship with my sellers and they really want to submit an offer at $405. So it's going to put $405 and they want $5,000 in closing costs from the seller. So let's fill that in here. They want the closing date to be 10/15. They're going to take possession at closing. Holder of the earnest money, we're going to say Keller Williams First Atlanta, and that will be paid by check. And that will be, we'll do $4,000, so 1% within 3 days of binding. Inspection due diligence. These buyers want 10 days of due diligence, so they're going to put 10. I'll put in 10 there. Scrolling down, lead-based paint. Since this home was built in 2008, we don't have to worry about lead-based paint, so it was not built prior to 1978. Scrolling down our brokerage relationships, you'll see that it adds me here as selling brokers, Keller Williams First Atlanta. And now you see how perfectly Keller Williams First Atlanta fits in that box. If we still had Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta, it would scroll over, the text would override over there. So I'm representing the seller's client, and then I'm just going to put in Harry Norman as the buyer's agent just to simplify things, representing this buyer as client. Material relationship, none that are known of, and we are going to give them until 12 p.m. on 10/2/2021 to review this offer. So I'm going to continue to scroll down through the purchase and sale agreement, see if there's any other information that I need to fill in. Keep scrolling. Perfect. So now we get to our exhibits and addenda. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the all cash exhibit is always checked. We're just going to uncheck that. We are going to select the legal description as an exhibit here too. So we have that. So I want to make that exhibit A. Then we have the seller's property disclosure. I want to make that exhibit B. And then we have the community association disclosure, and I want to make that exhibit C. Now, if you have a financing exhibit, you'd want to include that as well and check that box. But just for today's example, we don't have that. Scrolling down, we have our special stipulations. So here we can add any special stipulations. Seller agrees to remove all the trash from the attic and seller to have the home professionally cleaned once the seller is completely moved out of the home prior to closing at the seller's expense. I'm just making this up. So whatever stipulations you want to add here. Now, this is kind of a small box for stipulations, and I do not understand why the Georgia Association only allowed this amount of room for stipulations. If you need to add more, you can use the additional stipulations page. We would just check that box there, and then we would add that document to our room. Or if you have just a little bit more stipulations than can fit, but if you had a smaller font size, I'll show you how you can add a text box so you can fit more stipulations there, just so smaller font. So I have all of our stipulations there. We're going to scroll down. And now we have our seller's name and email address on the signature page. Now, I personally do not like to include my client's contact information on any document that will be shared with a co-op agent. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, that co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have with my clients. However, I don't want to find out if they're not. So my first instinct would be to delete my client's email addresses off of this page. However, like I mentioned earlier, if I edit or remove or delete any information from those pre-filled fields on any of the guard forms, it will make that same change or deletion from the details tab. So if I were to delete my client's emails off of this page, it would delete their emails from the details tab. Then when I go to send these documents for signature, there would not be an email address to send to. So I'm going to leave them here, but I will show you when we get to the envelope to send these for signature, how we can add some protection to our client's contact info. So their name and email address is good to go. Come over here, all this information is filled in. I'm just going to add in my Atlanta Realtor membership. If you wanted to, you can fill in all of the information for the co-op agent. However, I'd never recommend sending a document through DocuSign to a co-op agent for signature. We'll talk about that again in a few minutes, but I just want to put that in there that if you add all of your co-op agent's information, we still do not want to send for signature through DocuSign. So I'm going to click save and close. I'm going to save all of that information. Perfect. So now that we have gone through and we've added all the documents that we need for this transaction so far to our room, we filled them out. Now we need to prepare these documents to send for signature. And the way that you send documents in DocuSign for signature is through an envelope. The way that Michael New explained envelopes to me, and I really like it, so I just like to use that same analogy, is think of envelopes in DocuSign like a manila envelope that you'd have on your desk. Let's say you've gone through, you printed out all of the GAR forms that you needed and you hand filled them in with all the information, and then you organize them and put them in that manila envelope to store them and put that on the corner of your desk. So then when you see your clients, you take that envelope, that manila envelope, and you hand it to them and say, hi clients, please review and sign all of these documents. An envelope in DocuSign is that same thing. It really just is a holder to transport the documents for signature. So to create an envelope, there are two different ways that you can do that in DocuSign. The first way is here within the Documents tab. If you roll your mouse over any of the documents that you want to send for signature and select the ones that you want to send, the toolbar will appear, and then you can roll your mouse over the icon that says Create Envelope. That'll automatically create an envelope with the selected documents. So that is option number one. Option number two is you click into the Envelopes tab, and then we will click on New up in the top right-hand corner, and we're going to create a new envelope. So we'll just start at the top here, and we'll work our way down, filling in all the information that we need. So we'll start with envelope name. It's going to default to Please DocuSign, but I recommend that you actually give this a name that you'll be able to remember, because throughout a transaction, you're probably going to send 10, 20, 30, 40. You could send hundreds theoretically of envelopes throughout a transaction, and you need to be able to go back and find the ones if you ever need to double check anything or pull up an old document or confirm his signature time. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. Now I'm using abbreviations today. Even though the envelope name is just for me, I would not recommend using abbreviations with your clients, just so they are fully aware of all the documents they're signing. So now our next step is to add documents to the envelope. See here, we have a couple buttons of different options: room docs, use a template, and more. I want to add the room docs. These are the documents that we've just completed in the room. So I'm going to click room docs, and it's going to show me a list of all the room docs that I have. It breaks it out by folder too, if it's easier for me to do that. So in my room docs folder, I have my purchase and sale. I can go back to my all folders, or I can just select all the documents here. I do want to point out that as you get further along in a transaction, you're going to have a lot of documents in your room. So you just need to be very careful to make sure that you are adding the correct ones, because there will probably be some duplicate names. So I'm going to click Add Selected. Now it has added those 4 documents to the envelope. Now, one thing you'll notice that we haven't added yet is the Rawls Group affiliated marketing and the wire fraud prevention disclosures. Those are here in the envelope in DocuSign, but they are set up as a template. To add them to your envelope, you're going to click on Use a Template, and then we're going to select Shared with Me. And this is going to pull up all the templates and documents that the MCA office has created and shared with us as agents. So we'll just give it a second to load. It may take a little bit of time, but I promise it will work. There we go. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for the affiliated marketing and wire fraud disclosures. So I can see here I have a version that says buyer-affiliated marketing and buyer-wire fraud. And if I continue to scroll down, I see I have a seller version of those same documents. They are the exact same documents, same information. However, the signature fields will be mapped differently depending on which side of the transaction that you are working. So you want to be sure to add the correct version based on which side of the transaction you're working. So today we're working with sellers. So I'm going to select the seller affiliated marketing and seller wire fraud disclosure. And I'm going to click add selected. So we'll give that a second. Perfect. So now we have all 6 documents that we need to send to our clients. However, they're kind of in a weird, funky order, kind of alphabetical, kind of in terms of which ones I selected first. Now, since I'm sending over my listing agreement before I send it, I want my listing agreement signed first before my clients sign a purchase and sale agreement. If you want to put your documents in a specific order, you have to do it here at this step of creating an envelope. Once you go to the next screen, you will not be able to reorder the documents. Also, for whatever reason, and I don't understand why, if you click save and close and leave the envelope and then come back, it will just put them in alphabetical order. So we want to put these in a specific order. To do that, roll your mouse over the document icon that you want to move. So I have my listing agreement. I'm going to hold my mouse down and I'm going to drag this into the position that I want it to be in. So I want this to be the first document that's signed. Then I want my seller's property disclosure to be the second. Then my community association disclosure. Oh, and I want my purchase and sale agreement to be last. I don't know how they get moved over here. So I'm just going to drag that down to the last position. So it's listing agreement, move seller's property disclosure into the second. Community association, wire fraud affiliated marketing, and then purchase and sale. So that's the order that I want my clients to review and sign documents. Any questions about adding documents or putting them in a specific order?
No.
All right, perfect. So then once we've added our documents to the envelope, our next task is to add recipients to the envelope. And these are going to be the people that need to receive these documents to review and e-sign. This is a very important step because I would say about 80% of the issues that I hear about DocuSign happen right here. And there's an easily avoidable step. So when we click to add recipients to the envelope, it gives us 3 options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. Anytime that pre-tagged roles is an option, always select pre-tagged roles. The DocuSign team has gone through each one of the GAR forms and mapped out every individual text field, initial field, signature field to a specific pre-tagged role. So just as we went through the details tab and we said, okay, seller 1 is Tony, seller 2 is Pepper, and listing agent is Nick, all of those fields that are required for seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent will be mapped to Tony, Pepper, and myself accordingly. If you select room participants, 0 text fields, initial fields, signature fields will be mapped to anybody, which means that you will have to individually add every single signature field, initial field, etc. for all the documents. And that can eat up a lot of time. So always be sure to add pre-tagged roles when pre-tagged roles is an option. Now, there may be sometimes when you're working on a PDF and there aren't any pre-tagged roles, that's fine. Add room participants, you just manually add them, but it should just be a few signature fields. We have 6 documents today. I don't want to go through and manually add everyone. So I'm going to make sure I select pre-tagged roles. So I'm going to select pre-tagged roles, and it's going to give me this pop-up window with every single role that is included in all of these documents. And I'm going to select the ones that I need today for signature. So I'm going to come here to seller 1. I'm going to come down here to the select drop-down menu box, and I'm going to select Tony Stark as my seller 1. There's his name and email address. Seller 2, I'm going to do the same thing for Pepper Potts. And then listing agent, I'm going to select myself. Now, your name is likely going to be in here twice, once as in the room owner, agent owner, and then once as the listing agent. So I'm just going to select myself here. Either is fine, and I'm going to click add selected. Give this page a second to load, and it's going to add all of those recipients to the envelope. Perfect. So there is a fair amount of information here, so we're going to talk through this before we move on. So to the left of each one of our recipients' names, email address is a little box, and it says number 1. This box is the signing order that the recipients will receive the documents to review and sign. The system will default to 1. So this means everyone will receive the documents at the same time to review and sign. However, there are going to be certain times when I want to be the first person to sign, and then I want my seller to be the last, and vice versa. I want my seller to be, I want them to sign in a specific order and then come to me. If you ever want to edit the signing order, just click into that box and update the number for the signing order. So for this example, seller 1 is Tony Stark. So I want Tony to receive these documents first because I want him to be able to go through, review them, and fill in the seller's property disclosure and the community association disclosure. Once Tony has completed that, I then want the documents to go to Pepper, where she can review, make sure that all the information that Tony filled out is correct. Then the documents can go to me, I can sign them, and I can bind the listing agreement. But you can put it in whichever order you want and works well for your business. Here it just shows our client's name to the right of, and their email address. To the right of that, we have this drop-down menu. It's going to default to needs to sign. You can click on this and it gives a couple different permissions that we can assign to each one of the recipients. Like I said, it will default to needs to sign. The second is needs to view. So if you have someone that actually needs to view this, but they don't have to sign anything, you can give them needs to view. Receives a copy. So if you just want them to receive a copy of the document so they can review it on their own time, you can do that. Specify recipient. You don't need to do anything for that. And then witness for signer is new. So this is if you are witnessing someone signing, you can be that witness. I'll say 9 times out of 10, you'll use needs to sign. Sometimes it's beneficial to use receives a copy if you need to have a document that once it's binding or signed, filled out, that can be sent automatically to your closing attorney or lender or the co-op agent. You can just put receives a copy and you can make them the last recipient there. To the right of that dropdown, we have a more dropdown menu. And here we have the ability to add an access authentication code and add a private message. So if let's say you're working with clients and they're like, hey, I'm really not comfortable with e-signing things. I just don't want someone to hack into my email and then start signing all these purchase and sale agreements. And I'm under contract for a house that I had no clue about. I respect that. So what we can do is we can add an access authentication. And this is going to be a code that your client will have to fill in before he or she can sign any of the documents. So I can just make this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so I would say to Tony, hey, before you're able to sign, it's going to ask you for a code. That code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can make the code whatever it is, and it can have letters and numbers, whatever. But that's just going to add another level of security. So that way, if someone did hack into his email, they couldn't just start signing on his behalf. I don't actually want to include that, so I'm going to click discard. And then our other option is to add a private message. So since Tony is going to be our signer 1, and he is responsible for filling in the disclosures, I want to write a private message to just him. So I'm going to say, hi, Tony, please be sure to fill in all of the fields on the seller's property disclosure and the community association disclosure. Thank you, Nick. So there's my private message. So this is going to go just to Tony, not to anyone else, because I'm going to remind him one last time that he is responsible for those fields. Any questions on adding recipients to the envelope, setting the signer order, permissions?
No.
All right, perfect. So now that we've added our recipients and we've added pre-tagged roles, don't forget pre-tagged roles, we're going to scroll down and now we're going to write a quick message to all recipients. The email subject is going to default to please DocuSign. I recommend you just leave that in there. It's that way your clients know that this is a DocuSign email. You've probably at this point talked to them, hey, I'm going to send over these documents. for review and signature. But I would recommend adding some details so they know it's 1234 Main Street, exclusive style listing agreement, and purchase and sale. And then you can write another message here. Hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and e-sign. Thank you. And you can make that email message as long or short as you want. Once we've done all of this, we have successfully created our envelope. We've gone through, we've given our envelope a name. We've added our documents and put them in the specific order we want them in. We've added recipients as pre-tagged roles and added a private message for Tony. And then we've added a message, email message for all our recipients. Our next option is to click the next button up in the top right-hand corner. And this is going to take us to the envelope editor, where we can go through and double check all the signature fields, add any missing signature fields, and add any missing text boxes. So we'll give this a second to load. Now there's a fair amount of information here. So we're going to talk through the layout of this page before we actually start double checking our GAR forms. So up in the top left-hand corner, we have this little back arrow. If for whatever reason you need to go back to the documents tab, or just you're not ready to send it, you can click go back here. Below that, we have this drop-down menu. You can see it says Tony Stark with a yellow dot next to it. And you notice that all these fields below here are highlighted yellow. Well, there is a drop down, and each recipient in this envelope has their own assigned color. So if I click on Pepper, I'll now see that all these standard fields turn blue. And this is a visual clue that's going to make it much easier for me to go through and double check who is responsible for which signature fields and whatnot. So I can see myself as the listing agent. I am purple. So anytime I see a purple field on these documents, I'll know that it's assigned to me. I do also want to clarify that the colors are just randomly assigned throughout a transaction. You're gonna send multiple envelopes that in one transaction, Tony may be yellow, the next one he may be blue, the one after that he may be purple. It doesn't matter what color it is. It's just to help you more quickly visually ID who is responsible for what fields on these documents. So I'll leave this as Tony. To the right of that, if you need to undo or redo anything, if you need to zoom in, you can zoom into your documents to make it easier to read. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have our documents in our specified order. So you notice here's our listing agreement, SPD, CAD, wire fraud, affiliated marketing, and purchase and sale. You can expand, and then here are thumbnails of these documents. So I can just quickly scroll through these thumbnails. And then you'll notice on this page 10, it has these little tabs with each one of the colors. And that lets me know, okay, there's a required field on this page for each person that's on this envelope. And I can click on this page and it's going to show me, here's a signature field and a date sign field for Tony, Pepper's blue, and then myself is purple. And you can do that for all of the documents. They all have those thumbnails. So now that we know the layout, let's go back up to the top and let's kind of work our way through all the documents just to make sure there aren't any missing fields. And if there are, we can add some information here. So scrolling through, we have our listing agreement. And for whatever reason, the legal description, X I didn't do that. So I'm going to add that X here. So I'm going to select myself from the dropdown. I'm going to select the checkbox. I'm just going to add a checkbox right there. And then I'm going to double click it. So now that checkbox, the exhibit attached here too is checked. So we're good to go. I'm going to scroll down, just double check all the information very quickly. We have our 6 and 3. 90 days, no dual agency or sub agency. All right, so far so good. Keep scrolling just to double check. Here we have all of our brochures. And then again, for whatever reason, I don't know why the legal description didn't check there. So I'm just gonna add another checkbox, no big deal. And then we'll scroll down here. We'll double check our special stipulations. So we're good to go. Scroll down, we double check our signature field. So Tony and Pepper. We'll scroll down here. Here's myself as a signature field. And now, since I am the third and final signer, I can actually add some text boxes here so I can make this listing agreement binding when I sign. So to do that, I can come over here to the standard fields column and I can add a text box. I'm just going to add that text box right there, and I'm going to format it to fit. Perfect. And then you'll notice that this text box is filled in purple. That means that this is required, which means that the system is going to stop me when I get here and say, Nick, you have to put in some information in this field in order for you to move forward and successfully complete signing. So I'm going to right mouse click this. I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to paste it so I don't have to reformat that text box. It just makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to paste it again, and I'm going to add, actually, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to add the date sign field right here. So that way the system will automatically add the date here. So when I go through, I'll be able to make this listing agreement binding. So I'm going to continue down. Now we get to the seller's property disclosure. Now remember, previously when we looked at this in the room in the documents tab, all of these text fields and buttons were non-existent. I now see that they are all outlined in yellow, which lets me know that they are affiliated with Tony as seller one. However, I just pointed out up here on my listing agreement that this text box is filled in completely purple, and that lets me know that it's required. So when I see a box here that's just outlined in a color, that lets me know that that text box or that field is not required, which means that when Tony goes to sign, the system is going to jump right over all of these fields and go straight to the next required field, which I'd say is not a huge deal, except that most of our clients are not super familiar with DocuSign. So they're not going to realize that they have to scroll back up and fill in all of the fields here. A fun little workaround that's going to help your clients is if you click on this field here where it says what year is the main dwelling constructed on the seller's property disclosure, click on that field. This menu is going to appear on the right-hand side and check required field. Now it's filled in yellow. So when Tony is signing, the system is going to stop here on this field and he's going to have to fill in the year, and then it's going to make it much easier for him to go through and check all these boxes and fill in all these other text boxes. Now, I don't want to go through and make all these fields required because I don't know which ones he needs to leave blank, which ones he needs to provide explanations for and whatnot. But just having this top one here set as required will help him a lot. So just going to scroll through, make sure that all of the boxes and check areas, the radio buttons are all signed yellow, so that way Tony can fill them in. Everything is looking good. Just want to make sure that there isn't anything missing here for either myself, Tony, or Pepper. Perfect, here we go. And then we have our signature fields for Tony and a signature fields for Pepper. Good to go. Now we're going to keep on scrolling down through our community association disclosure. So this is going to be the same thing as a seller's property disclosure, where it now has all these boxes and check boxes for Tony, but none of them are required. Well, I don't want Tony to skip all over these text boxes and just go to the signature field. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come here to the name of association text box, and I'm going to make this one required, because I don't know which type of association Tony has for his neighborhood, and I don't want to assume. So I don't want to make sure that I don't want to make all these text boxes up here mandatory or required. So I'm just going to select this one for the name of the association that's required, and then it'll be much easier for Tony to then scroll up just a little bit and fill in the correct type of association and fees. So I'll just go through, double check, and make sure all these other fields are correctly assigned to Tony. Everything looks good to go so far. And then we have our seller initials, good to go. Scrolling down to our identity theft and wire fraud. Signature, full name, date for Tony Pepper, good to go. Affiliated marketing. signature and date signed for both Tony and Pepper. Good to go. Now we get to our purchase and sale agreement. Let's go through again, double check all of the information. Attach an exhibit. Here we good to go at closing. KWFA. 10 days. There's our initial fields for both clients. Just keep scrolling. Scrolling. I will double check to make sure our exhibits and addenda are correctly checked and labeled. So we are good to go there. Now we have our special stipulations. Now remember, I pointed out like this is a really small box and you may have to write more special stipulations. If you have a ton of them, like I said, I recommend using the additional stipulations. But if you're like, you know what, I just have like a few more here that I could fit if I had a smaller font. Well, what you could do is you can add a text box here. So I'm going to select myself from the drop-down menu. I'm going to select text. And I'm going to add this text box and I'm going to format it to take up this entire space. Now you'll notice that it's purple, which means that it's required. I'm going to uncheck required and I'm going to make this read only. And the benefit of making this read only is that way no one can make an edit to this text field when anyone is signing. So now I'm just going to start typing in steps more, lots more, even more steps, not done yet. Now you can see in this text box, I've added so many steps that I have to scroll. Well, you can't scroll on a PDF. So what I can do is I can highlight all of those stipulations, and then I can come over here to the formatting menu, and I can come over here to formatting, and I can select font, and I can make this 7-point font. So now all those stipulations fit in that box. Now I do want to caution you that I wouldn't make a habit of adding 7-point font stipulations to a contract because that's not going to win you any friends with a co-op agent or a closing attorney because it's going to be even harder to read. But if you do just need to make some just a little bit smaller to fit, that is an option. I would recommend using the additional stipulations page. So that way it's easier, more clear for everyone to read. Scrolling down, we have our signature page for our purchase and sale. And I had mentioned earlier how I don't like to share my client's contact information with any co-op agent, but I wasn't able to delete that earlier in the Documents tab because it would delete it from the Details tab. So what you can do is you can add a black box over the email, so that way it will protect from the co-op agent. To do that, I'm going to scroll my mouse all the way over here to the icon of the pen of pre-filled tools. I'm going to select line, and then I'm just going to click and drag a line across my client's email. Now it's red and it's not very big. I can still make out what that is. So I come over here to our formatting menu and click color, pick color. I'm going to select black, so it's the most simple. And then thickness, I'm going to make this all the way 10-point thickness. And I'm just going to move that down so it covers up the entire email address. And it's that easy to protect my client's email. Now, a black bar is not the most beautiful way to do this, but I would rather have a black bar on my contract protecting my client's email address than not. And now I'm going to do the same thing for Pepper as seller number 2, but I don't want to have to go through all those steps. So I can just right mouse click, or I can just copy it and then paste it and just drag this down here and cover seller 2. There we go. So now both of my clients' contact information is protected when I send this offer over to the co-op agent.
So evidently you've had an issue in the past.
I personally have not had an issue in the past. I've worked with agents that have had issues with co-op agents, like going behind my back, or and going directly to the clients and be like, hey, like we can make this work if you did this, that, the other, or you didn't work with that agent. And I just want to prevent any of that from even being a possibility.
Okay. Because I'd never seen or heard of doing that. Although I guess, you know, on some of my DocuLoops and DocuSigns that I've gotten in the past, some of the emails may have been blurred out.
Yeah.
Maybe not blackened out, but you couldn't read them, come to think of it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not a necessary thing, but it's just something that I like to do to protect my clients. And
Okay.
I want you to be able to do the same if that's what you choose to do for your business.
Protect your clients, and that's just how you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So scrolling down, we'll just double check. Here's my signature field. Everything looks good to go. So now what we can do is we can click send, and this will send this to our clients. Or if I just want to give it one last triple check, I can click here on this recipient preview. And then this is going to show me a preview of what it would be like for my clients to sign. So I can click viewing as, and there's a drop-down menu. I'll select Tony. And it's going to load what this would be like for Tony to sign. Now, this is not actually going to sign anything. It's just a preview. But I can look at what a desktop view is, what a tablet view would be. And then the last one, what a mobile view would look like. So if you're working with clients and you have to get this offer in ASAP, and they're like, hey, we have really important dinner reservations, or we're going to go see Hamilton at the Fox or whatever, you can say, all right, that's fine. I'm going to send you this document, but you're going to need, I need you to sign it on your phone, and they have the ability to do that. It's just going to be really small, and they're not going to be able to read it very well, but they do have the ability to sign. So you can just, you know, go through the different options, and then you can click start, and it's going to jump you from required field to required field. And this is what it's going to be like for your clients. So it's just a quick preview so you can double check and make sure that all that information is correctly added there. So if you're done with the recipient preview, click the X in the top right-hand corner and then click send. Perfect. So now it has sent this envelope. So I'm going to open up my email because I'm going to go through and I'm going to let's do sign as each one of the recipients. So let me come over here, KWFA Tech. Perfect. So you can see here, I've received an email that says from Nicholas Core via DocuSign. And this is to Tony. This is me signing as Tony. And then here's a private message to Tony. Please be sure to fill in all the fields on SPD and CAD. And then there's the message that I wrote to both of them. To get started, Tony's going to click Review Documents. It's going to open up DocuSign. Tony's going to select Agree to use electronic records and signatures, Continue, and Start, Sign. It's going to ask him to confirm his signature and initials. If he wanted to change it, he can upload it, do whatever. Just click Adopt and Sign. So see how it jumped from this signature field right here to the next required field, which is the year the dwelling was constructed. This is 2008. Now it is so much easier for me to go, or for Tony to go through and type in information. And I'm not going to go through and check every single box, but I do want to do some of them just so you can get an idea of what it'll look like when Pepper goes to sign, how all the information that he puts in here will show up on her, so that way she can give it a double check. Because the more eyes that you can make sure that this information is accurate on it, the better. So there we go. So I'm just going to skip all this. I'm just check a bunch of these. All right, he scrolls down, Tony signs. And now it's going to jump to the community association disclosure. And this is the name of the association. So we'll just name this HOA name. And it's really easy for Tony to scroll up and say, okay, I have a mandatory, and it costs $1,000 and it's paid in 2 installments per year. And then he can fill in the rest of the information, contact name, community management. So And then I'm going to scroll through and go through here. Assessments, common elements, pool, tennis, playground, dwelling exterior, no special assessments, no litigation. And you do want to make sure that you talk to your clients and that they fill in all of the correct information on the community association disclosure, because it has been stated numerous times from our closing attorney partners. If your seller doesn't fill out the correct information, he or she will be required to pay the difference. And they agree to that in this form. So Tony's going to sign initial here, sign, initial, sign. Now Tony's done, but in order for Tony to actually complete this, he must click the finish button. So you can click finish here or up here in the top right-hand corner, but click finish. It's going to ask him, pop-up window, if he wants to create an account. We'll give it a second. Tell your clients they can click no thanks. They don't need to create an account. And then you need to make sure your clients get the you've finished signing page. This is very important because if your client does not receive the you've finished signing, the DocuSign will not send the documents to the next signer. So it'll get held up here and it'll be like, Tony never finished signing, so Pepper can't sign and the listing agent can't sign. So we just got to be mindful of that. So I'm going to close this. Come over here. Now I'm going to open up my personal email. And then here's my please DocuSign. So this is going to be me signing as Pepper Potts. So here's Tony and Pepper, please review and e-sign. Pepper's going to click review documents. It's going to do the same process. It's going to ask her to confirm. Please review documents, continue. Start. Sign. And see how it jumped right to the very bottom of that seller's property disclosure? Since Pepper, I've talked to Pepper about this, she knows to scroll up and she can go through and it's going to show her all the information that Tony filled in here. So it gives her the ability to just give it a second once over, make sure everything is correct. All right, everything looks good. She can sign. Same thing for the community association disclosure. Is any missing information here? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Everything's good. Oop, let's go back up. We'll initial, sign, sign, initial, sign. And now Pepper's done. So I'm going to click finish for Pepper. No, thank you. Pepper's all finished, so she's good to go. Now I'm going to go to my personal email. Just right here. And now here's my invitation to sign as the listing agent. So I'm going to click review documents. Continue. Start. Sign. Now, because I set this up as a required field, the system is stopping me. So I'm going to make this binding at 12 p.m. on 10/1. Fill in, sign. Now I'm finished. So I'm going to click finish. I do not want to log in. No, thank you. And now I've received the you finished signing page. So everything's good to go. Now I'm going to come back into Tony's email really fast. So if you give it a second, after everyone has completed signing, everyone on that envelope will receive an email that says completed, and it's going to have the signed copies of all of those documents. By law, we are required to send documents to our clients so they have record of them. DocuSign kind of makes this step really easy because it does it for us automatically. Now, that does not mean that you as a client service first agent wouldn't want to send a separate email saying, hey, here are all the documents for your records. Probably want to do that. But DocuSign does send them just so everyone has copies of them. So that's a really great feature that I like. So now I'm going to go back into DocuSign. I'm just going to refresh the page on the envelope so it lets me know. I can say, perfect. that envelope is completed, I'm going to go into my documents room or documents tab, and I'm going to scroll down, and then I'll see here are with its green check marks are all the signed copies of all the documents that were just signed. Now, remember earlier when we were first in here, I said anytime that a document is added into the documents tab or is completed a signature, it will default into the room docs folder. Now, if we want to move those documents, so I want to move my affiliated marketing, my listing agreement, my wire fraud prevention, community association disclosure, and seller's property disclosure. Just drag and drop those into the listing agreements folder. So now I have them organized and everything is good to go. This document here, this certification, this just shows a history of the time that everybody signed. So if there's ever any questions about when someone reviewed and signed, you can just double check this. So now that we have all of our documents in DocuSign completed, now we need to upload them into Command. To do that, I'm going to go back into Command. And now we're going to start adding them. To do that, it's going to say attach files from, and has this drop down menu. It's going to default to my computer manual, but if I select DocuSign, because remember I clicked start a transaction in Command, so it automatically linked my Command opportunity to my DocuSign room. I'm going to click on DocuSign. Now it's going to connect with DocuSign. So I can just go through this list here and I can select from my folders over here. So this is my listing agreement. I'm going to scroll down to my listing agreement folder. And then I'm going to look for my exclusive seller listing agreement -signed. And I'm going to select that. And then it's going to automatically add it into my opportunity. And you can click on this link here with the title, and it's going to show you a preview of the form. So we have my community association disclosure. So I want to do that one as well. So community association disclosure, seller's property disclosure. So this takes a few minutes, but it's really important that you do it. And then we have our Rawls Group affiliated marketing. And then our Rawls Group wire fraud prevention. So there we go. Now I've added all of my documents. At this point, I would click submit to MC, and this would submit these documents to Lynn and Alita for compliance review. What questions do you have for our DocuSign training this morning? We went through a lot of information. Anything that you need clarification on, that you thought I was going to walk through that I didn't, that you still need help with?
Let me ask you a question about, say I have a listing and a buyer, an agent is sending me a contract and it's not in DocuSign.
Yep.
And it's PDF. I know I need to upload it in Command, but how do I do that? And do I have to separate those PDFs into specific forms?
Yes. So if you received, let's say you're the listing agent and you received an offer from a buyer's agent, and he or she has combined all those documents into one PDF, you would come over here and you would click add, and you would upload from your computer. So I'm just going to upload, let me just find, what is this? Okay, I'm just going to add this random list of FMLS properties. So it is added. Here we have the document that I've just added. I can open this document. And then up here in the top right-hand corner, there's this document actions button. It's a little icon with the piece of paper with the corner dog-eared. You can select that, and then you can select split. And this gives us the ability to separate all of this PDF. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll give this first document a name. I'll name this purchase and sale. And I can come over here and I can click the documents of all the pages that I want. or I could say pages 1 through 2, and it will highlight it. If I want to add the next document, we can just do community association disclosure, and I want this just to be page 3. And then we'll do seller's property disclosure, and I want this to be pages 4 through 5. So it's that simple. And then click save. Scroll down to the room docs folder, and here it is separated out all of those documents. There's my CAD, my purchase and sale, and SPD. So I was able to break up that one single document here, and I still have the original single document into these 3 separate PDFs.
Okay. And how would another agent prefer to get your offer? Like, for instance, let's say I had a buyer, and would they rather get a PDF, or should I send them the information through DocuSign? You don't want the agent signing through DocuSign. You had said that earlier, right?
Yes. So what I would recommend, this is how I would run my business. I would select all the documents that I want to send. If you wanted to, you could combine them into a single PDF right here through this combine, but I would just download them as PDF, or add them all, download them all as PDFs. And then I would attach these to an email and say, hi, attached is an offer for 1234 Main Street. You'll find the purchase and sale agreement and blah, 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 blah. And I would just attach them as a PDF. I wouldn't send anything through DocuSign whatsoever to a co-op agent, because sometimes DocuSign will attach the PDF to that email, but most often, and then in the past, it would have the co-op agent would have to click review docs, then go to another page where they would have to download the documents. And to me, that's too many steps for a co-op agent. And I want to do everything I can on behalf of my clients to make sure their offer wins. So I want to make it as simple as possible for that co-op agent.
Great point. And most co-op agents are going to want these forms separated like this.
Some like, some like them separated, some like them to combined. It's whatever you want to send them. I always usually send them separate, so that way they can more easily upload them into DocuSign or .loop or Remind or whatever they use. But if you want to combine them, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Okay, so I like having the option. I just was curious as to what people really liked most. Okay, so I'm going to be writing a lease agreement for some commercial property, representing the landowner, the landlord.
Yep.
And what documents will I need besides the commercial? Well, first off, we're going to do the brokerage agreement.
Yep.
The commercial brokerage agreement.
So your question is a wonderful question. However, I do not know. So I'm going to recommend that you reach out to Lynn and Alita, our compliance broker,
Okay.
because they will be able to tell you specifically which documents you will be required to have from your clients. One thing I do want to point out is that when you are working with leases in Command, you only have the seller and buyer titles. But if you're working with a lease agreement or whatever, seller will be considered landlord and buyer would be considered tenant.
Okay. That's what yeah. Okay, because I had actually done one on Remind, but and that's another thing. So I remember you going through this, and there was a place for a second agent or a co-agent working together. Okay, it's been in the information, just forgotten it.
Yeah, so in the details tab, we have listing agent 1, and then if you do have a co-agent, listing agent 2, and the same thing for buyer's agent. So I don't, you're on Rita's team, correct? Or working together?
Right.
Yeah, so if you wanted, you could be listing agent 1, and then if you wanted to include Rita on it as well, you can put her name and information here, and she would have the ability to sign as well. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's what I needed to know. And because it's coming from my command center, I would be the first agent, correct?
It doesn't really matter, but that's how I would set mine up.
Okay. All right, great. All right. I think I got it.
Well, so here's the thing, as you're playing around in DocuSign, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. I'm going to upload this to the YouTube channel, and there's a bunch of other versions of the same training. So if you ever need to reference it, you're like, wait, what did Nick do here or there? You can check that out as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nick, for making this so much easier than it could be, because I know that this very technical stuff can be too much for me, but you've just simplified it and it just makes so much sense.
Okay, well, I'm happy to help. Have a wonderful weekend, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or need anything.
Thank you so much, Nick. I'll see you next week. I'll let you know if I have a lot of trouble.
All right. Sounds great.
0 problems. As a reflection on your teaching,